Bikers harass a woman at night. When she reveals her identity, they're stunned. The street was quiet. Too quiet. The only sounds were the rhythmic hum of Anna's bicycle wheels against the pavement and the distant honk of a car far off in the city. The night air was crisp, a slight chill creeping through her jacket, but she didn't mind. She had biked home this way for months now. It was the fastest route, even if it took her through a few dimly lit streets before reaching the main road. She wasn't afraid of the dark. Not anymore. Anna adjusted the strap of her helmet and pedaled forward, her bright green jacket standing out in the shadows. Her heart rate was steady, her breath controlled. Another late night at work, another ride home. Routine. Until she heard the low, guttural growl of an engine behind her. Her grip tightened on the handlebars. The sound wasn't coming from one motorcycle. It was several. Anna didn't panic, but her senses sharpened. A quick glance over her shoulder confirmed it. 5 men on motorcycles, dressed in black leather jackets and helmets, their headlights casting long, eerie beams onto the pavement. They weren't speeding past her. They were keeping pace. Watching. A flicker of amusement crossed Anna's face before she forced it down. They think I'm easy prey. The street stretched ahead, empty and silent. Too many closed shops, too few streetlights. No witnesses. The bikers didn't speak at first. They just rode alongside her, an unspoken game of cat and mouse. Then, one of them pulled up closer. "Hey, sweetheart," a voice called out over the rumbling engines. Anna ignored it. Another biker, the one wearing a black helmet with a silver stripe, moved in on her right. "That's a nice bike," he said mockingly. "Bit small, though. You sure you don't want a real ride?" Laughter rippled through the group. Anna kept pedaling, her mind assessing every movement. The road. The positioning. The exits. They weren't attacking, yet. A third biker swerved in front of her, forcing her to slow down. "Come on now, don't be rude," the first one taunted. "We're just having a little fun." Anna let out a slow breath. Still no fear. If anything, she was bored. They surrounded her now, their bikes flanking her on both sides, forming a moving barrier. One of them reached out, brushing his gloved hand against her arm. "Don't touch me," she said. Calm. Controlled. The way she said it made the biker hesitate. Anna glanced at him. Beneath his helmet, she could see the flicker of confusion. That wasn't the reaction he was expecting. Usually, this was the part where women stammered, begged, looked for an escape. Fear made people predictable. Fear gave men like these power. But Anna wasn't playing the role they expected. She wasn't afraid. The leader, a broad-shouldered man with a jagged scar running down his jawline, finally spoke. "What's a pretty thing like you doing out here all alone?" His voice was thick with amusement. Anna smiled. "Who said I'm alone?" The bikers exchanged glances, their laughter dying down just slightly. Scarjaw chuckled. "You don't look like much of a threat, sweetheart." Anna's eyes flicked to his hand, resting too comfortably near his hip, where a weapon might be. Not a gun, not in public. A knife, most likely. She met his gaze again. "I don't need to be." There was something unsettling in the way she said it. One of the bikers, younger than the rest, shifted uncomfortably. "Derek," he murmured to the leader. "Maybe we should just let her go." Derek, Scarjaw, snapped his head toward him. "You scared of a little fun, Mikey?" Anna watched Mikey carefully. He wasn't like the others. But that didn't mean he'd step in. Not yet. "Now," Derek continued, "since you seem so tough, why don't we?" A sudden whoosh cut through the night air. A motion so fast it barely registered, Anna's foot kicked out, striking the closest bike's front wheel. The biker jerked sideways, his bike wobbling dangerously before he managed to regain control. "What the hell?" he spat, glaring at her. Anna's smirk widened just a little. "I warned you." The other bikers tensed. This wasn't going how they expected. Not at all. The air between them changed. No more teasing. No more easy laughs. The biker Anna had kicked into a stumble, gritted his teeth, revving his engine in frustration. "You think you're funny?" he growled, his gloved hands tightening around the handlebars. Anna kept pedaling at a steady pace. "A little," she admitted. Derek, the leader, let out a slow, low chuckle. It wasn't amusement, it was calculation. "You've got some nerve," he said, matching her speed. His bike's engine purred menacingly beside her. "That's good. I like girls with a little fight in them." Anna sighed, shaking her head. "This is getting embarrassing for you." The younger biker, Mikey, shifted again, looking between her and Derek. "Derek, maybe she's not worth it," he muttered under his breath. Derek shot him a look. "Are you serious?" His voice dropped into something more dangerous. "You getting soft?" Mikey swallowed hard and said nothing. Another biker, the one with the silver-striped helmet, pulled in close, matching Anna's speed with eerie precision. "Let's make a deal, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with false charm. "You give us that pretty little bike, and we let you walk home." Anna didn't even blink. "Funny thing about deals," she said. "They work best when both parties have something to offer." He sneered. "You've got a smart mouth. Let's see if you're still talking when we—" His hand shot out toward her handlebar. The moment his fingers grazed the grip, Anna moved. Her left hand snapped to his wrist like a steel trap, twisting it just enough to make him yelp. At the same time, she slammed the brakes, causing him to jerk forward. For a brief, comical moment, he flailed, his balance thrown off. Then he let go, cursing as he swerved his bike away from hers. The others braked slightly to avoid colliding with him. Anna started pedaling again, completely unfazed. Derek's amusement was gone now. She could hear the tension in his voice when he spoke. "I was trying to be nice." Anna arched a brow. "No, you weren't." His jaw tightened. "You don't get it, do you?" "I get it just fine," she said, finally coming to a slow stop in the middle of the empty street. The bikers formed a rough circle around her, engines humming like restless animals. Anna stepped off her bike, adjusting her helmet strap as she turned to face them. "I've seen men like you before," she said. "You think power comes from intimidation." Derek's lips curled into a smirk, but it didn't reach his eyes. "And what? You're gonna tell me it doesn't?" Anna shrugged. "It does. For weak men." The silver-helmeted biker who had just nearly fallen scoffed. "Lady, you're playing with fire." Anna took a step closer. "So are you." A silence settled over the group, the tension thick enough to cut. Derek looked her over again. There was something off about her. The way she carried herself. The way she spoke. Most people in this situation would be scared, desperate to get away. But she was waiting. Waiting for them to make a move. And that's what made Derek hesitate. Mikey's voice was lower this time, careful. "Derek, let's just go, man." Derek exhaled through his nose, irritated. He looked at Anna one last time, then shook his head. "Get out of here," he said finally. Anna didn't move. Derek's smirk returned. "Or, do you want to see how this ends?" The engines revved. Anna sighed. "You had your chance." And then, with one swift motion, she unzipped her jacket. The bikers froze. Because what they saw underneath made their blood run cold. Anna's jacket slid off her shoulders, revealing a dark, fitted tactical vest underneath. Not just any vest. The kind only a certain type of professional wears. The bikers didn't move. Not right away. Their eyes locked onto something just above her heart, a patch, half hidden in the dim light. Derek frowned, squinting at it. The moment he realized what he was looking at, his entire demeanor changed. "Wait a minute," he muttered. The silver-striped biker took a step back. "No. No way. That's... Anna rolled her shoulders, loosening her arms. Something wrong? She asked casually. Mikey's face paled. Derek, we need to leave. Now. Derek didn't move. He was still staring at the insignia on her vest, his brain working overtime. The wheels were turning, putting together a puzzle he didn't want to solve. Anna watched his hesitation. Finally, recognition clicked in his eyes. You're lying, Derek said, his voice tight. There's no way. Anna just smiled. Try me. The street was dead silent except for the low purring of engines. Derek turned sharply to Silverstripe. You said she was alone. Silverstripe's voice was strained. I thought she was. Anna tilted her head slightly. Define alone. Derek's jaw tightened. He was weighing his options. Backing down meant humiliation. His crew would never let him live it down. But if she was who he thought she was, if she was really her, then this wasn't just a bad idea, this was a suicidal one. Anna took a slow step forward, her hands still relaxed at her sides. Derek instinctively stepped back. He caught himself immediately, scowling at his own reaction. But he knew. The way she moved. The way she stood. The way she wasn't afraid. It all pointed to one thing. Silverstripe was the first to crack. I heard about you, he stammered. You were all over the news last year. You took down. Anna cut him off with a sharp glance. You talk too much. Silverstripe immediately shut his mouth. Derek clenched his fists. His men were starting to panic. That was dangerous. Fear turned men sloppy. Made them unpredictable. Anna's gaze flicked to each of them, reading their body language like a book. Mikey wanted out. Silverstripe was already on the edge. And Derek? Derek was trying so hard to hold on to his ego. Anna sighed. This is your last chance, she said. Walk away. Derek's pride was burning. His hands twitched at his sides, itching to prove something. But then... Sirens. Distant, but unmistakable. Derek's head snapped toward the sound. His expression darkened. Anna raised an eyebrow. Something wrong? Derek exhaled sharply through his nose. He turned to his men. We're leaving. Mikey didn't hesitate. He was already on his bike, ready to go. Silverstripe followed, his hands still shaking as he revved the engine. But Derek lingered. He locked eyes with Anna one last time. This isn't over, he muttered. Anna smirked. Yes, it is. Derek clenched his jaw, then sped off into the night. One by one, the others followed, their taillights disappearing down the street. Anna waited until the last bike was gone. Then she pulled out her phone, glanced at the screen, and smirked. GPS activated. She turned toward the approaching sirens, adjusting her helmet. Now it was her turn to have some fun. The distant wail of sirens echoed through the city streets, growing louder with every passing second. Anna smirked as she watched the taillights of the fleeing bikers shrink into the distance. She had expected them to run. They always did when faced with something they didn't understand. But not Derek. His bike screeched to a stop halfway down the road. The others hesitated when they realized he wasn't following. Anna sighed. She knew his type. The kind that needed to win. The kind that couldn't handle being outmatched, especially by a woman. Derek revved his engine, the deep roar bouncing off the walls of the empty buildings. Then, with a twist of his wrist, he whipped the bike around and came straight back. Silverstripe shouted after him. Derek, are you insane? Derek ignored him. His bike raced forward, tires screeching, determination burning in his eyes. Anna didn't move. Not yet. Her fingers twitched slightly at her sides. She shifted her weight just so, her muscles coiling like a spring. Derek wasn't thinking anymore. He was running on rage. His ego had blinded him to every red flag, the way she moved, the way she spoke, the insignia on her vest. All he saw was a woman who made a fool out of him in front of his men. And now, he was about to learn just how big a mistake that was. He reached for something at his side. A knife. Anna's eyes flicked toward the weapon. Her body moved before her brain fully processed the action. Derek lunged. Anna sidestepped. In a blur of motion, she grabbed his wrist, twisting it in one precise motion. Derek let out a strangled yell as the knife clattered to the pavement. The next second, Anna moved again, twisting her body, using his own momentum against him. Derek's balance tipped. Then he was flying. His body slammed into the pavement with a sickening thud. A stunned silence filled the street. Silverstripe's jaw dropped open. Mikey froze mid-step. Anna barely broke a sweat. Derek gasped, groaning as he rolled onto his back, pain flashing across his face. His pride was bruised harder than his body. Anna crouched next to him, her voice dangerously calm. "Are we done?" Derek glared up at her, but for the first time tonight, he had nothing to say. Anna exhaled, shaking her head. "You bikers never learn." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a zip tie. Derek's eyes widened. "Don't you dare." Anna flipped him onto his stomach and yanked his wrists behind his back, securing them with practiced ease. She leaned down slightly. "Derek, do you know what happens when you attack federal personnel?" Mikey visibly flinched at the word. Derek's breath hitched. He swallowed hard. "You're bluffing." Anna just smiled. The sirens were close now. Almost there. Silverstripe took a few steps back, his hands raised. "I didn't touch her. I swear." Anna didn't even look at him. Smart choice. Derek gritted his teeth, but he wasn't struggling anymore. He knew it was over. Anna stood, brushing off her sleeves. Then, without looking back, she reached down, grabbed his dropped knife, and slipped it into her pocket. "Don't worry," she said lightly. "I'll make sure this gets added to your charges." Derek let out a long string of curses, but he didn't fight her. He couldn't. Not anymore. The flashing red and blue lights reflected off her helmet as the police finally arrived. Anna turned toward the officers and smiled. Perfect timing. The squad cars skidded to a stop, their headlights flooding the dark street with blinding light. The air filled with the crackling of police radios and the shuffle of boots on pavement as officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters. Anna barely turned. She didn't need to. She already knew how this would play out. Two uniformed officers approached cautiously, eyes flicking between Anna and the man groaning on the ground. Derek was still on his stomach, wrists zip-tied behind his back, his face twisted in barely contained rage. The lead officer, a stocky man with graying hair, frowned. "Ma'am, step away from the suspect." Anna exhaled through her nose. She'd been expecting that. She raised her hands in an exaggerated show of compliance and took a step back. "Relax, officers. I'm the one who called you." The second officer, younger and tense, narrowed his eyes. "And you are?" Before Anna could answer, a third officer rushed forward from one of the cars. The moment he saw her, his entire demeanor shifted. Holy, he stopped short. "Major Matthews?" The other two officers stiffened. Anna finally turned, tilting her head slightly. "Good to see you, Parker." Officer Parker, tall, clean-cut, still adjusting to his uniform, looked between her and Derek, trying to process what he was seeing. What exactly happened here?" he asked, rubbing the back of his neck. Anna gestured casually to the restrained biker at her feet. "Assault with a deadly weapon. Attempted robbery. Probably more if you check his record." Derek let out a bitter laugh. "You've gotta be kidding me." One of the other officers snapped out of his daze and hurried forward. "We'll take it from here, ma'am." Anna didn't move. "Not yet." She crouched beside Derek one last time, lowering her voice. "You were looking for an easy target." Derek glared at her, breathing hard. Anna smirked. "How'd that work out for you?" His nostrils flared, but he stayed silent. "Good." She straightened and stepped back as the officers hauled him up onto his feet. Derek winced but didn't struggle. He knew it was over. Silver Stripe and Mikey stood off to the side, frozen in place. The lead officer turned to them. "You two part of this?" Mikey shook his head so fast his helmet nearly slipped off. "Nope. Nope. Not at all." Silver Stripe hesitated, his gaze darting between Derek and Anna. Anna raised an eyebrow. "Think carefully." Silver Stripe swallowed hard. Then, slowly, he lifted his hands. I just rode along. I didn't touch her." The lead officer sighed. "We'll sort it out at the station." Mikey visibly relaxed, like he had been given an escape route. I'll cooperate," he blurted out. "I swear." Anna just watched as they were all led toward the waiting squad cars. Derek didn't look back. Anna adjusted the strap of her helmet and stretched her arms. Officer Parker gave her a half smirk. "You know, most people just call us when they need help." "They don't," he gestured vaguely at the scene around them. "Handle it themselves." Anna grinned. "Where's the fun in that?" Parker let out a low chuckle and shook his head. "Still scaring the hell out of people, huh?" Anna shrugged. "Only the ones who deserve it." The doors of the squad car slammed shut. The bikers were gone. The street was quiet again. Anna turned toward her bike, running a hand over the handlebars. Her night wasn't over yet. The flashing red and blue lights bathed the empty street in a rhythmic glow. The tension had finally settled, leaving behind nothing but the soft crackle of police radios and the distant hum of the city. Anna adjusted the strap on her helmet, watching as Derek was shoved into the back of the squad car. He hadn't said another word, but the look in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He would remember this. So would his crew. Mikey stood by one of the other officers, hands still raised slightly, as if he wasn't convinced he was safe yet. Silver Stripe had already folded, answering every question the officers threw at him, eager to save his own skin. Anna didn't care. They weren't her problem anymore. Officer Parker walked back over, shaking his head. "Well, this is going to be an interesting report." Anna smirked. "You should have seen last week." Parker chuckled. "You ever think about giving us a heads up before you do this kind of thing?" Anna glanced at the squad car, where Derek sat, his jaw clenched, staring straight ahead. "No," she said simply. Parker sighed. "Figured." The lead officer, the one who had initially told her to step away, approached with a cautious look. "So, Major, you're saying this was all self-defense?" Anna gave him a pointed look. "Are you questioning me?" The officer immediately shook his head. No, of course not. It's just," he cleared his throat. "You seem awfully calm for someone who just took down a whole gang." Anna shrugged. "It's not my first time." The officer blinked, clearly deciding he didn't want to know more. "Right. Well, thanks for the help." Anna nodded and turned back to her bike. Parker stepped closer. "You sure you don't need a ride?" Anna swung one leg over her bike and gripped the handlebars. "I've got it from here," she said. Parker exhaled. "You always do." She pushed off, the familiar hum of her tires rolling against the pavement bringing her back into rhythm. Behind her, the last of the squad cars pulled away, taking Derek and his crew with them. The night had returned to what it was before, quiet, empty, still. Anna breathed in the cool air, feeling the tension in her shoulders finally ease. Some things never changed. And some people never learned. Derek had made his mistake. Now, he had the rest of his life to regret it. The night air was still, crisp against Anna's skin as she rode, her bright green jacket a stark contrast to the shadows that stretched across the city streets. It was over. The bikers were gone. The squad cars had disappeared into the distance. The street, once filled with revving engines and threats, was now just another quiet road leading home. Anna didn't look back. She never did. She pedaled forward, the hum of her tires against the pavement the only sound breaking the silence. Her body was loose, relaxed, but her mind was still sharp. Adrenaline hadn't completely faded yet. It never did, not right away. Her hands flexed slightly on the handlebars, remembering the weight of Derek's wrist in her grip, the way he had frozen when he realized he had picked the wrong person to mess with. Men like him always thought they were in control, until they weren't. Anna had seen their type before. Too many times. The ones who believed that fear equaled power. The ones who had never been told no, and didn't know how to handle it when someone didn't flinch. Derek had learned the hard way. And now, he was sitting in the back of a squad car, zip-tied and humiliated, wondering where the hell he had gone wrong. Anna smirked. She wondered how long it would take before he realized. He never had a chance. The streetlights flickered overhead as she turned onto a more familiar road, one lined with late-night diners and neon signs, the kind of place where people were too busy living their lives to notice the woman in the cycling helmet slipping through the city like a ghost. She reached a red light and slowed to a stop. It was late, and the roads were empty, but she still obeyed the signal out of habit. A car idled at the intersection, waiting to turn. The driver, a middle-aged man in a work uniform, glanced at her through his window, then did a double-take. Anna met his eyes through the glass. Recognition flickered across his face. He knew. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The light turned green, and Anna pushed off, leaving him staring after her, watching as she disappeared down the road. She didn't need to explain herself. She didn't need to tell anyone who she was. The people who mattered already knew. And the ones who didn't? They would find out eventually. She was halfway home when her phone buzzed in the pocket of her vest. Anna sighed, coasting for a moment before pulling it out. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen in months. Commander Hayes. She stared at it for a second before pressing accept. Major Matthews, a deep voice rumbled on the other end. Still finding ways to make headlines? Anna smiled slightly. I didn't start it. Hayes chuckled. You never do. But you always finish it. She let the silence sit between them for a beat. Then. What do you need, Commander? A pause. Then, in a lower tone. There's a situation. Anna's grip on the phone tightened slightly. Of course there was. She should have known this wouldn't just be a social call. She should have known her night wasn't over just yet. Where? She asked simply. Classified, Hayes said. But let's just say, it's in your area. Anna exhaled, shaking her head. He always did this. Never the full story up front. Just enough to hook her in. She glanced at the empty street ahead. Her apartment was only a few blocks away. A hot shower. A warm bed. A quiet night. She could say no. She could tell him that she was done. That she wasn't interested. But they both knew better. Anna sighed. Send me the details. There was a brief pause, and then. I already did. Her phone buzzed again. A location pinged on her screen. Anna rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the small smile tugging at her lips. Of course he had. She adjusted her helmet strap, shifted gears, and turned at the next intersection. Her night wasn't over after all. Because trouble had a way of finding her. And she had a way of finishing it.